Coventry Carol. This is a very old 16th century English traditional Christmas song, and it was originally performed as part of a nativity type play that was done around Christmas time then, and sung by a group of mothers who were upset about things that were going on. Anyway, what we're going to do with this is learn how to harmonize the melody. That's why I only played the melody there. No chords. You're going to come up with the chords. And there is no right or wrong answer to this. There are a lot of different options. So what we're going to do is this is going to be a lesson in harmony of how to figure out what chords you might want to use for a song. And we will look at a lot of different ways and probably not even all of the possibilities, but what it is, so what I want you to do is we're in the key of E minor. And this is going to take like some paper. You're going to have to write some stuff down, make some notes. And the first thing I want you to do is write out the notes in an E minor scale. Now, the key of E minor has one sharp in it, F sharp. It follows the same set of notes as a G scale. So if you know your G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, you could start by writing that down. Now, we're going to renumber those letters, those notes, because we're in the key of E minor. The same set of letters, but starting on E. Okay? Write this down if you haven't already. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, and we don't need to write an E at the end because what we're really going to be concerned with is figuring out what notes are in each chord, and then consequently what chords we could use to harmonize any given note. So the way it's going to work in this melody is we're going to start with the idea of having one chord for every single note. This is a very typical way of harmonizing a lot of hymns and other old traditional melodies. So we may not, anyway, like I said before, a lot of different possibilities. Okay, so you've got your E minor scale written down, and now what we really want to do is know what notes are in each of those chords. So we're going to first build a triad on every one of those notes. An E triad, an F sharp one, a G one, an A one, and so under each letter, write down what would be the third note of that scale, and then the fifth note from that note. So for E, we're going to write down the third from E, which would be G, and under that, the fifth, A, B. So now you've got a list of notes across the top of the page that goes E, F sharp, G, A, up to D. And then another row underneath that is the same set of notes but starting with G, which is the third of E. And underneath that, a third row that is the same set of notes but starting with B. And now what you'll have is the notes of each triad stacked up. And you should know what those chords are already, but we're going to review that in the next segment. So, and then we're going to talk about some of the other variations that happen in a minor scale that make it a little bit different from a major scale. So, that's your first assignment, is review or figure out the 7 triads, major, minor, or diminished, that occur in the key of E minor, and we'll explore that in the next segment. The chords then in the key of E minor. Hopefully you've looked at your 7 sets of triads, and we'll see that the first one is E, G, and B. And if you already know some of your theory and stuff, you would know that that's an E minor chord. So E minor is going to be chord 1 in our song here, in our key, and the fact that that chord has E, G, and B in it means that it could be used anytime one of those 3 notes is the melody. So we're going to kind of reverse engineer this in a little while, and we'll come back and look at a particular note that we have on the page or in the melody, and then we'll want to pick out the chords that include that note, and that's the chords we're going to consider at that spot. So, but before that, let's make sure we have all the same chords. Now, so chord number 1 in the key of E minor is E minor. Chord 2 would be built on F sharp, and that's going to end up being a diminished chord. So before we get around to playing this and hearing what it sounds like with some of these possibilities, let's check your work. And let's go through the letters of the alphabet, the letters in our scale, and see what all the possibilities are. Let's start with E. So the chords in this key that are going to include E would be the chord that would have E as the root, E minor. The chord that would have E as the third would be C, and the chord that would have E as the fifth would be A minor. Got that? Okay, F sharp, the second note of the scale. I'm going to wrap this up with a pretty much just a little improvised playthrough of some of the stuff we talked about. Let's see what comes out of here. Well, that's one way it could go. But once you have all the chords together, you might just start messing around with some of those things and see what you can come up with. If not sure I want to go to, not sure if tab for that is necessary, but it might have to, if there's some questions that come out of this, after, especially about some of the stuff I did there, I'd be happy to answer it either on the forum or right here on the lesson. But I would really love to see what some of you come up with as far as your own harmonized version of Coventry Carol.